So this is a hard one, guys. I recently was at a city council meeting that was taking action against the RV dwellers of Berkeley. In a way, they tried to word it as a thing they were trying to do to be helpful to people that are homeless. But to be honest, this is an attack on an aesthetic, and I'll get into why in a moment. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on. Allegedly, there is a particular infestation of a lot of RVs in some concentrated areas of Berkeley. Now, mind you, as a vehicle dweller who drives around Berkeley, I now notice RVs in really weird places. And it's only because I'm paying attention to them now. To be honest, before I was vehicle dwelling, when I first got to California, I noticed the tent cities right away because that was a little bit unusual to me, like these encampments of tents that people were living in. It was just, tents are for campsites, but in the same way, I guess RVs are for campsites. I mean, that's what they're designed for. They're designed to go to a campsite location, stop and park, and provide the temporary feeling of home to someone while they're at a campsite. That's why they're called recreational vehicles. Now, I'm not saying this to downgrade RV dwellers. My van was intended to be a passenger van for 6, 7 to 8 people. Like, that's what it was designed for. And I decided to turn it into a home. And it's my vehicle, so I can do that. And I feel the same way about the RV dwellers. Whether they are urban RV dwellers or traveling campers or just do 14-day stays on BLM land for no other purpose than a cheaper way of living, it's their vehicle. They should be able to do that, especially if they're not violating any other parking ordinance. If they're small enough to fit inside a standard parking space, and some people are going to get upset with me for saying this, and they're not violating any parking laws, there shouldn't be any additional laws that are created to get rid of them. The problem is there's very few places where larger RVs can park, and so they've started finding industrial areas where they can park, and so the next person who shows up with a large RV also are parking in these spaces. On top of everything else, these vehicles are big, so they're not taking up 1 parking space. They may be taking up 2.5 to 3 parking spaces. These vehicles are especially designed to go out to a campsite, park, and stay there. And so a lot of these RV dwellers, like, they're not using them as daily drivers. Like, people like me, and other people who are trying to pull off vans and RVs in urban areas, like, our intent is that our home is also our daily driver. Like, you don't tend to see people in the city with an RV and a tow vehicle because that's just kind of weird. On March 21st, they had a march. I was not present because I had to work that day, so by the time I found out about it, it was too late. On March 26th, I went to the council meeting and got a first reading of this crap. Now, the blue parts are the parts they added and adapted, probably in reaction to them being told they're trying to push poor people out. The black parts were the original parts of the ordinance. I think the confusing part about fighting this is the words homeless and the words vehicle dweller. And you could tell there were people who went up there who were very proud of their homes, their vehicle homes, and people who wanted to play the homeless pity me card. There were children used by both sides, both for and against this RV ban. And I use the word used very lightly, but the thing is, you put kids up there, everybody feels sorry for them. And this is also going to get into a point that's coming up. I need another sip before I deal with this. because I'm going to rant a little bit about this. Again, there seemed to be a divide between people who were pushing the card of how dare you, like, you know, be mean to homeless people, and then people who were pushing the card of, I have a home, I don't need you to solve my problem for me. In fact, I'm in this situation because your system failed to solve a problem for me. Like I said, when I first got to California, there were tent cities everywhere. That's what I noticed. Every once in a while, I might have noticed an RV out of the side of my eye, but like, it didn't pop out to me. I'm sure it's popping out a lot to people who want to park. And if they're pretending this is anything about people wanting to park, they're full of it. That's exactly what this is about. RV dwellers and car dwellers in general have solved their own problem, which is they don't have a home. So they acquired something that was already built like a home, or build themselves homes. Homes that are offering like way more protection than people in tents. If there's anybody you need to make an action item, it's not people who have solid roofs over their head. It's the people in the bloody tents. Because they are vulnerable to the element. So if there are people, and I'm not saying people who actually are in a car and it's like the worst experience ever, they're not eating healthy because they don't really understand, you know, going to the store and getting a camping stove. Like, those people are vulnerable and should be counted as a vulnerable population. If I have acquired an RV or whatever to live in and I'm living in it fully functionally, I have solved my housing problem. You have already proved to me, Berkeley, Oakland, and connected areas, that there's not enough housing for me, let alone affordable housing for me. There's a reason why there's 10 and 20 adults in one freaking house, because nobody can afford to live on their own. Even a married couple, even married couples are renting out their extra rooms instead of putting kids in them because they can't afford their mortgage or their rent by themselves. One of the things they said, enforcement of RV parking under ordinance number 7,63.NS BMC section 1420-120 should be preceded by a period of initial, this sounds really nice, of initial outreach to RVs, including offers of support and assistance to RV inhabitants with notification of applicable parking ordinances and a reasonable time frame to comply. Written housing, homeless, and other applicable resources, and during the initial period of outreach, RV inhabitants should be provided with outreach by a homeless services provider, including housing problem solving assistance, possible funding for RV repair, that part is actually really nice, and referrals to additional housing and homeless resources, health, mental health, or addiction services, and other appropriate services. What they're saying is they're going to hand them a bunch of pamphlets. Really, the only reasonable part of this is offering possible RV repair, because there are people who have RVs that have something broken on them. A busted out window, possibly a flat tire, and poor people, like, they tend not to be able to make those repairs right away. They usually, if they have insurance, they don't have insurance covering those types of damages. So the only hope they have is saving up enough money to actually repair those things themselves. So they tend to not be able to do it right away. I mean, I struggle with anything that's, you know, I just recently got into a place where I don't cry too much if I need to replace something. Like, I just replaced the battery on this. I just got an oil change, and I just threw in an extra courtesy check just to make sure everything was running okay. It wasn't a courtesy check. I paid for it. But, you know, I threw in a little check where they look at all the systems, they top off all the fluids, like all of that. I'm like, while I'm here, it doesn't cost that much, throw it in. But there was a time I would have panicked over doing anything that wasn't the possible minimum to keep me going one more day. The problem with that is you're not thinking about the 20 days later, the 1 year down the line, et cetera, et cetera. And what I've learned from past mistakes is to prioritize maintenance. Like, don't wait till it's falling off if you can prevent it. But so the only thing nice here is the possible funding for RV repair, but they have the word possible in front of it. What they are offering is outreach. Outreach is what I went out for when I first became homeless. And outreach is dumb things like these classes where they teach you how to rent an apartment. I knew how to rent an apartment. I couldn't afford first, last, and security. So what is this outreach program going to do? Like I said, these people have already solved their problem. They have a place they can live. You have no places for them to live. You have lists miles long of people trying to get housing who can't. You have them stacked up in shelters together. Most of the people, that's why I didn't want to go to a shelter when I first became homeless. Shelters traditionally have a history of being unsafe and making people feel unsafe. The only better thing they provide is a roof over your head in the elements. A lot of people are in tents for the same reason, because then at least they feel safe. They're in their own enclosed environment where they feel a little bit more secure than they do in shelters where they're constantly made vulnerable. This is basically, let me go to another thing that's on here. Let me find it. Criteria for eligibility should be clearly articulated and fairly applied. Sounds really nice, doesn't it? The Alameda County Homeless Coordinated Entry System has standards already in place with criteria such as health status, disability, self-care needs, age, and household size, including the presence of children. Yes, it does have these things in place. So basically what they have is a system of pity points. So if you can prove enough pity points, you get to move up the list. How dare you, like myself, be a fully functional single woman who doesn't have children or any health issues. And I'm not downplaying anybody who does have children. One of the RV's dwellers there was a couple with a few children. And you know what they did? They moved into an RV, reduced their cost of living, got their kids in a good school, which means they figured out the address thing, and now they have kids thriving in a Berkeley school, and you want to mess that up with this whole nonsense? They house themselves. They need a safe place to park. Like, the answer is a safe system of parking that doesn't leave them all congested in one place. Like, that is the answer. It's not transitioning them to a system where housing doesn't exist. Like, a lot of these people already went through this system and they weren't prioritized. And the system is a joke. Yes, it sounds really nice. Let's prioritize the people that need it the most. It sounds wonderful. But you know, the problem is, if let's make up somebody, because there was a guy in the audience who made a good point. He was about 30-year-old man, seemed to be, full of all his facilities, no clear signs of mental illness, no children, nothing that made him, he was a white male, nothing that made him a part of the vulnerable population, but he doesn't make him a lot of money, and he lives in an RV. And he said, well, what about me? And that's the exact problem with the coordinated entry system. The coordinated entry system, which they're basing this RV rehab on, is about prioritizing people who can prove enough pity points, which is why people spend all day, once they become homeless, chasing the system. Because once you have nowhere to live, all you can think about is trying to find some place to live. So looking for work, trying to engage in other things in your life, they kind of go away because your whole mentality is focused on trying to get housing, and people are telling you, go to this place, go across town. You're spending half your day on a bus because you don't have a car either. Like, those are the desperate, vulnerable people that really need help, and they should be allowed to get that help in the order in which they arrive, not based on some idyllic coordinated entry system. Because the thing is, like, if fully functional Bob shows up in December, on December 4th, and he's moving up the list, if somebody with more pity points shows up 3 months later, he can get knocked down on that list that he's been waiting on forever. And if people who have more pity points, who have more, things that mark them as part of a vulnerable population, keep coming in, he's never going to get served. And you're going to get mad at him because he went and got an RV and started parking on the street? That is ridiculous. And like I said, this is about aesthetics. It is not about helping a vulnerable population. And all this wording makes it sound like they're being nice, and they're not. This is BS. And I agree. You know what? If they're parked more than 72 hours in one space, they do need to move. Like, everybody needs to be given a fair shot at that space. It's not my fault you have a 30-foot RV. I support the fact that you bought a 34-foot RV. Now you need to deal with the fact that you can't leave it parked there for more than 72 hours. And just because it's difficult for you to park, like, that part is not my problem. But pretending this is about helping people, like, that part is BS. I call BS on it. I call BS on the whole thing. So basically, we're going to take a little drive around and examine some of these accusations about rundown RVs and dirty vans and disrupting business. I am close to Gilman, which is one of the areas cited with high RV congestion, and I know exactly what they're talking about. What I disagree with is the state of said RV. So this is the Gilman area, one of the talked about areas of high congestion. There's an Office Depot right there. On the other side of the street is a Whole Foods and a Dollar Tree. I'm just gonna circle around a little bit. So right now we're driving beside the Whole Foods. As you can see, there's hardly any RVs right here where there's a lot of businesses. Like, hardly any that really jump out at you right away. As you get to turn to the Dollar Tree, not surprising, the Dollar Tree. Hang on, there's a lot of traffic. As soon as you turn the corner, we see exactly one RV. Now, we're going to be doing drive-bys, but basically this RV is, except for the graffiti on the side of it, which isn't pretty, like, it's in pretty good condition and there is no garbage. This guy has solar, like, tipped on the top of his RV. It's relatively small and it's absolutely clean. I could turn left or right. There's an RV on both sides of me, but I'm going to go ahead and turn left. And we're coming up on another RV. It's old. It's not the most attractive thing ever, and there's another one on the other side. But what they are doing is they're taking up a lot of space. So really, this is about parking. It is not about trash. It is, and over here, there's a couple businesses over there, and again, they don't have enough parking for their employees. That part is true, but they don't want to make it just about parking, because if they make it about parking, they look like assholes. Because they're telling people they can't use the housing that they've created for themselves because they're blocking the convenience of parking. And we're coming up on a lot of RVs. Again, no trash around it. It's old. We're hitting our first RV with a tarp as we cross this intersection. Okay, I get to go. This is our first RV with a tarp. None of the other RVs in this block have a tarp. All of them are actually clean. Some of them are in great condition. Some of them are in so-so condition. They might have a damaged bumper. This guy's really tiny. We have a very, very, I don't even care, Vanlife van right here. This is also the industrial area. We are we're pretty far from the businesses. Like, as the presence of RVs increased, we were moving away from the businesses. So let's circle back around. So we're going down another block in the Gilman area. This may or may not be a Vanlife van. Sometimes these conversion vans are just like vans that people own. Now, this VW van has the windows covered. It's highly likely somebody's living in it. And then behind that is a small RV, again in great condition, no trash around it. Like, this accusation of dirt and disgust is just BS for the majority of RVs. All right, so we are relatively behind, like, most of the front door parking for businesses. There's one RV in this block, and there's a business on the other side. And then otherwise, it's residential. And if you come down a little further in the block, there is exactly one more RV, which is a truck camper in this block, where apparently there's an infestation of dirty, suspicious RVs. There's nothing suspicious about them except they're big and they look out of place. We are in the 4th Street area where there is also an accusation of a high concentration of RVs. I am right now underneath an underpass where actually a lot of homeless people, and you can see kind of a a tent in the camera. I'm actually going to move the camera around. Okay. There actually are several people staying in tents under this overpass. The overpass provides extra protection from the weather, and then the tent provides privacy. As you can see, the area is already regulated by several things like this, which is meters and 2-hour parking restrictions, which again are the laws that already exist to control parking and allow people sort of a fair shot at parking during business hours. Like, these kinds of restrictions already exist, and you're free to enforce them. Also, there's a 72-hour parking rule. After 72 hours, you're supposed to move. That's the longest you're supposed to stay somewhere. And so if somebody violates that, people are well within their rights to report that, which is why I don't see why we need extra laws to cut out the few spaces that people have found to exist in RVs. So this is the one of the ritzier parts of 4th Street, another area of high accusation. As you can see, there's not an RV on this block. There's a lot of little shops. All of it is metered parking, so you can't stay here all day anyway. And yeah, so like, then we're gonna cross through Addison. So now we're crossing into a more warehousey area where we just passed the Vanlife van. And I've been down here, actually, the park. To the right of me is a little bit of a camp of tent people who I think are more priority to take care of than people who are in RVs. And look, we have a schoolie. We have an urban schoolie right here. And it has a pipe sticking out, so they probably have a stove. And again, we're down in the warehouse area. There are no businesses around here. The RVs do not have trash around them. Again, I haven't seen a goddamn tarp. Like, this accusation of all these tarped immobile vehicles. And if you're maintaining a vehicle and what's the word I'm looking for? And be able to put gas in it, that means you're getting money from somewhere. So a lot of these people are working. Like, they aren't necessarily without jobs, but the jobs are not providing enough income for them. So you want these people to leave their jobs. And I'm passing another, oh, actually it's I can't tell if that's a fake bus or not. Nope, it's a fake bus. It's a fake shuttle. It's definitely a Vanlife shuttle. There's another RV in the next block. 4th Street isn't even as concentrated as near where Harrison was, where like you turned a corner and there were like 20. And we're coming up on an RV. There's no trash around it. There's no tarp on it. Again, it's just old and it looks out of place. And right in front of that is definitely a Vanlife van. And that one actually looks really good. Like, absolutely good. So as I turn the corner, you will catch sight of an Airstream that kind of has a tarp on it. Let's see if we can get it. Yep, there's an Airstream, and it kind of has a tarp on it. It's connected to a pickup truck. I think trailers are a little extreme for city life, but for all we know, it actually belongs to somebody who works in that building. Coming up on another urban RV. It's one of those Rialtas, whatever. It's really tiny, would fit in any parking spot, perfectly clean. And I had to drive a long way down 4th Street to even find a RV, let alone any sort of congestion of them. So the fact that people were showing up from 4th Street saying, I work at 4th Street and RVs are a problem, like, that trips me out. So a lot of these accusations about filth caused by, I'm going to blanket call us vehicle dwellers, is BS. It's just like human beings. There are some people who are really bad about keeping their homes presentable, and other people who aren't. Like, nobody needs to fix housing for the majority of these people. I mean, if somebody really has a van that's broken down and you know, can't be moved for whatever reason, yes, let's find a way to get them mobile. Let's give them some assistance. But if they're fine except for needing a safe place to park, why are we trying to fix something that isn't broken? Actually, the only thing that's broken is the parking part. So why don't we try to fix that? Fix the parking. Don't try to fix their housing. Don't try to take their housing away if they won't submit to your permit system and your stupid version of RV Section 8, which is basically what they're trying to create. I mean, really, a parking lot, one way to make money on an empty lot is a fee, you know? Well, anyway, gotta go.